What keeps you awake at night?
Sea levels are rising globally.
Fears fueled by horror stories.
Among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous.
Another series of deadly terror attacks.
I don't want to be blamed if you cannot get to sleep tonight.
Hey guys. Before we do our little intro, mistakes were made. And I would like to hold a little correction corner because apparently I got a few things wrong about influenza. Well, I didn't get it like it definitely doesn't affect the accuracy of my podcast, but I feel like I really need to add some things to make it worse.
All right, everybody settle in.
Two things I want to add. One, when I called the influenza outbreak the mother of all pandemics. By the way, qualifier. I'm talking about my previous episode with influenza. If anybody, if this is your first episode,
go
What the
watch
fuck
it right
are
now.
you doing if you haven't watched it?
Stop listening to this right now. Go listen to that one. It's
it's a bummer.
important.
So this is my update on that. In it, I called the influenza pandemic the mother of all pandemics. Now, I thought that was just a very creative, spooky way to describe it. And honestly, creative writing props. That's a really, really good use of the English language. Might be. That's not why it's called the mother of all pandemics. Let me just read a quote from you that explains why it's called the mother of all pandemics.
Story time.
So this is from Jeffrey Taubenberger, who is an American virologist.
Beautiful
he
name.
says in his research, all influenza A pandemics since the Spanish flu pandemic are indeed almost all cases of influenza A worldwide, excepting human infections from avian viruses such as H5N1 and H7N1. Have been caused by the descendants of the 1918 virus, including drifted H1N1 viruses and reassorted H2N2 and H3N2 viruses. The latter are composed of key genes from the 1918 virus, updated by subsequently incorporated avian influenza genes that code for novel surface proteins, making the 1918 virus indeed the mother of all pandemics. So, that's the exact, but what that distills down to is every single influenza A pandemic that I reported on subsequently are all genetically derived from the 1918 pandemic.
Nope.
And I want to clarify
think about that.
So I want to clarify scientifically why that is. So I talked about how a type A influenza strain mean it's found in like swine and birds and other mammals. Usually a type A strain is endemic to animals, so it means it does not have the ability to infect humans. I could go really intricately why it's not possible, but essentially it doesn't have the binding proteins to infect human cells. So within itself, the fact that it mutated to form from an avian strain, where it's been theorized that's where it began, to be able to infect humans is insanely rare. Like, that itself is an insanely rare mutation. It barely happens. All those other influenza outbreaks that were avian strains, that is a rare event. However, it is even more rare that a strain that began as an avian type A strain, mutated to infect humans, had the ability to mutate to infect human to human. Like, that literally, it's the statistical impossibility of that happening is insanely high, right? So when I was researching the 2009 avian flu outbreak, which had a mortality rate of 50%, okay? 50%, which is double of that of the 1918 pandemic. The CDC claims that there were no substantiated reports that the avian flu transmitted from one person to another. So you could only get it from being in contact with sick birds, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's the CDC director's biggest fear, is because we have yet to see again an incidence like the 1918 pandemic where it was able to mutate from a type A strain endemic to animals to a human strain, and then from a human strain to human strain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that there hasn't been a mutation from starting with a human strain mutating to a separate human strain?
Right, so like
Okay.
all those avian outbreaks are literally direct contact from sick bird to human. The likelihood that that strain will be able to infect from one sick human to another is a statistical improbability. And so that's why, as a result, every single pandemic that I had listed that was a type A strain that was infected in humans, they are all the results of that original 1918 strain mutating and never going away.
Woof.
Hey,
So,
Cool.
also, second thing I want to add, I said Philippines in the last episode. I meant Singapore. Singapore had to drop $40 billion due to people being sick from that illness, which is
lot of
lot
money.
of money.
SARS. Yeah. So, so that was my thing. Just want to add, I think that's really important for people to understand that, like, the 1918 pandemic began every other massive flu outbreak. Like, they're all very genetically similar, and it's, the evidence shows that that strain has continued to exist and mutated into, like, different lethalities. And, like, the statistic probability of that outbreak happening is insane. Just on like a biological level. So other than that, that's my intro. That's my little correction. Hey, welcome to Things That Keep Me Up at Night.
Hi.
I am Olivia.
I am Brooke.
I'm Brie.
And today we're continuing our series on epidemics. If you didn't get that from my little corrections corner.
What? I had no idea.
So, Brie, if you would like to introduce your pandemic or epidemic or whatever it is, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Here, before we start, let me shuffle real quick. Okay.
Okay. Hold on, let me slurp.
Is it Mountain Dew?
No, I don't put that sugar shit in my
Microphone picks up
body. Gives me acid
everything.
reflux.
If
Everything
my
gives me acid
tummy
reflux.
growls pick up on the recording, please tell me. I think it'd be hilarious.
Tummy growls.
They are.
Okay, ready, Brie?
So, here at Things That Keep Me Up at Night, we throw around the term bit-free episode a lot. But I really
mean
can't
once
emphasize how
ever?
much that phrase holds true to this particular episode. By far, the saddest and hardest research I've ever done for this podcast, or any schoolwork, for that matter.
So just ever.
Yeah, I mean, there was times when I actively was just bawling during certain documentaries and had to take breaks, which that's pretty hard for me to do, especially. But yeah, it was horrific. So this is my epidemic episode on the human immunodeficiency virus, aka
Yes.
HIV.
Yes.
Okay, y'all want to hear a really funny story?
What?
Yes.
Okay, so about a week ago, I was like, well, maybe I could take over the heavy hitters since like Olivia was sick and whatever. We had a bunch of stuff, and I started to do research, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm waffling between a couple, and then I was like, AIDS is like so important, and I took a class on it, and I got a half page into research, and then I was like, wait a minute. And I texted our buddy who is screening the different topics to make sure nobody overlaps. And I was like, hey, buddy, is Brie doing HIV? And I got back, I wouldn't tell you if she was, but you should probably do something else. I just think it would be a better fit for you.
He tried his best.
Nice
Yeah,
save.
so I have seen the Dallas Buyers Club, so I would say I'm an expert on the history of HIV.
Oh
So,
my god.
hit
I
me.
couldn't think of a movie quick enough, so I guess you're the only expert here.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And the band
well,
will play on. There. Oh my god, I can't even begin to describe how many
Let's do it.
movie and medias have been inspired by this. Okay, so yeah, we
The
also
normal heart.
are.
Yeah, the normal heart. I got one. I'm good, guys. Shit.
Well, I guess we have 3 experts in
Well,
the room. One of us
3.
is gonna have to change.
Okay.
Now we've got our goofs in. Let's get down to
Okay,
business.
here we go.
I've put no jokes, none. I mean, I think
mean-
the only joke I have in here is making fun of the FDA and also the Reagan administration.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Reagan administration is going to be rough, but as
Bro,
a
you have
potential...
no idea.
Yeah,
I
no,
want
I
to
know
take
that part's going to be bad, but I already feel in me, as somebody that's going into pharmaceutical research, that I'm gonna have some reservations about dissing the FDA, and I apologize in advance, but hopefully the devil's advocate thing plays out and I don't get doxxed. That's
I'll
my
argue
hope.
it for you. It'd be fun to do a devil's advocate bit. That'd be
Oh,
cool.
I thought you were gonna say I'll do it for you,
Yeah,
as if you're
I
gonna
hope you
dox
get
me.
doxxed.
I was like, holy shit, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
stakes
SWAT
have
team
been
you, Olivia.
raised.
Fuck you.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with just
God.
like up and roundhousing the Reagan administration in the face.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same page about the Reagan administration, huh?
Oh, bitch,
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
But there's more.
There's only one thing about the Reagan administration I liked, and it was like this one big dick energy moment, and I just want... This is the only thing I'll say, and then we can go back to
Olivia.
roasting them. That one thing. One thing.
The warning tone in Brie's voice.
Essentially, like, before Reagan was elected, there was the hostage crisis, I think in Iran or Iraq, I can't remember. And Reagan essentially got on the stand and said, if I get elected, I sincerely promise you I will bomb the shit out of your country. And they were like, they wouldn't elect him. And like 3 days after he was elected, they released all the hostages. And that's
Yeah.
about it. That's my only positive thing. And then, besides the kind of like letting the gay community get fucked, that's the only big dick energy moment from Ronald Reagan. So
I mean,
Yeah, he also personally fired a bunch of aircraft controllers because they were protesting, which is super illegal.
it's fine.
I mean, honestly, nothing that he did during the HIV epidemic was a big dick energy moment. I know that we're all joking, but nothing
dick
was
energy.
okay.
Yeah,
He's
small dick
dick.
energy.
His response, we're gonna go into it, but basically,
Let's go.
Let's get
start
started.
at the beginning, and then when you get to the end, stop.
Stop. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, my epidemic is on HIV and AIDS, which I think Olivia and Brooke knew obviously that I was doing because it's something that I'm very passionate about. And basically it's because of the fact that just the absolute ignorance and lack of human empathy towards the LGBT community at the time was just absolutely sickening and appalling. So
And it also led to more deaths by from people who weren't in the LGBT community.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
The
It affected-
stigmatization of that disease was what led to a bunch of just average straight people to die as well because they were like,
Right.
it's a gay disease.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into it. So yeah, I want to do this episode because of how many people's lives have been taken away and affected by AIDS, but mainly because it's still real, and as of today, it is affecting 36.9 million people all over the world. We should be talking about it because it needs to be talked about, and
100%.
I just think it's very important. So, we ready to get sad?
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm already sad. I was born sad.
Wow.
I mean, what?
Okay.
We can cut it out in post, it's fine.
And now she won't.
No, she won't.
I might cut out the Reagan shit, but I'm not sure if I'm cutting that shit
Don't
out.
cut out the Reagan shit. I'm gonna bash Reagan throughout the entirety of this episode. So good fucking luck, buddy.
Yeah.
So let's break down the actual science piece first, and then we can break down the effects on society that the virus had. So the virus is spread through contact with infected sexual fluids, the use of needles that are contaminated with HIV-infected blood, and perinatal transmission. So basically anything with childbirth, breastfeeding, as well as just if the child is in the womb of somebody who is HIV positive, they can receive the virus, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like something that, you can't really help sometimes, right?
Yeah, well, especially when it was first
Yeah.
discovered.
Right, yeah, I just want to pin it. I just want to pin that.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, right, the virus works by attacking T helper cells in the body. And T helper cells are basically the cells that protect the immune system from infection. So as soon as those cells are shot, your whole immune system is shot. Without them, it's pretty impossible to fight off any form of sickness. To make it even worse, after attacking the T cells, the virus replicates its cells to act like normal T cells by manipulating the RNA and DNA, but continue to attack and break down the healthy T cells without the body really noticing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are 3 stages of the HIV infection, which I didn't know that this part kind of shocked me in itself. Stage 1 occurs 1 to 3 weeks after contracting the virus and can feel like the flu. So stomach pain, sore throat, headache, etc. But some people actually might not feel any symptoms at all.
Which I fucking hate anytime any fucking disease says you might not feel symptoms at all.
That's terrifying.
Really don't like that.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, it's also important to note that the virus doesn't show during testing of the stage. So if you believe that you have been in contact with the virus, it's important to wait around 4 weeks before getting tested. But obviously they didn't know that back then. So the next stage can last for 10 years or more when the person feels completely normal.
Love that.
Yeah.
So you can hypothetically feel completely normal and then feel completely normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And then
Love it.
and now yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, your body is destroying itself. Cool.
Right, exactly. So stage 3 is where people actually start to feel sick, right? There are no symptoms until the virus continues to weaken the immune system. The person's immune system is so badly damaged, that's when they contract AIDS. So AIDS and HIV don't equate to each other. AIDS is the symptoms that come after HIV, and it is the worst of the opportunistic infections, which is a term coined as just basically infections that you get through the virus from just having a shot immune system, right?
Yeah.
So
Wait, pause really quick. I'm pretty sure AIDS is just the name of when your T cells becomes a certain lowered level. I don't think AIDS is a disease, like an infection.
Right, so the infections occur basically AIDS is based on a person's T cell count, right? And any present of specific opportunistic infections. But it's it's a latent stage of the progression of opportunistic infections.
Yep.
Okay, what I thought you were saying was that AIDS was an opportunistic infection, and I was like, that's
No. I think
not
it's just like the
right.
classification of that stage at that
Gotcha.
point.
Right, yeah.
All right, sorry. I just wanted to clarify because I didn't want us to get like emails saying
Another
like,
correction corner.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You just start yours with,
because
hey,
this is like
mistakes were
pretty
made.
heavy and like
Yeah.
you know. Okay, sorry. We can go back to wherever you were in the script. My B.
Right, you're fine. So basically, yeah, like what I was saying before was that AIDS isn't an opportunistic infection. It's basically just the worst advanced stages of HIV that is characterized by a certain T cell count as well as certain opportunistic infections. So the presence of specific symptoms of AIDS are thrush, which is a white coating on the tongue, sore throat, yeast infections, tiredness, dizziness, headache, weight loss, bruising easily, diarrhea, fevers, swollen armpits or groin, deep dry coughing, rashes, sores, lesions, memory loss, confusion. There's a whole series of symptoms as well as there's a lot of opportunistic infections that are cancer related, so a lot of lipoma. And it's for me to go into like all of the presence of the different opportunistic infections would take too much time.
But to add one that you didn't have in there and to tailgate on like a story from the other night, I've recently moved to LA and I think that the tap water there, even when it's filtered, is giving me like really gnarly dry mouth. And so last night I had Googled what causes dry mouth, and I swear to God, the first result was AIDS.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why the fuck would you tailor that as the first result to my mouth is kind of dry.
Right.
Nice WebMD. Way to go.
Yeah. I mean,
Classic.
Really good.
right. And so that's why when you texted me about that last night, Olivia, I was like, oh my God.
No, I had a feeling you were gonna do this one. So
Oh, yeah, we all knew.
I'm locked and loaded.
So let's begin at the start of the epidemic itself. The virus is said to originate in the 1920s along the trade routes of the Congo Basin in Africa. Research has found that the virus stemmed from a strain called SIV, which is almost identical to HIV, but is found in chimpanzees.
Yup.
So at some point, the virus crossed species to form HIV from a separate mutation of SIV. So basically what happened was there was the original SIV virus. It mutated to another form of SIV that can be translated into HIV. Okay. So the first actual sample of the virus found in a human was in 1959 from a man living in present-day Kinshasa. I'm going to butcher this. Kinshasa. But the start of the epidemic in the United States really began in the 80s. On June 5th of 1981, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention described a rare lung infection, as well as other infections contracted by 5 gay men in Los Angeles, California. By the time the report was published, 2 of the men had already died. The series of cases quickly caught the attention of the press, leading doctors to report a flood of similar stories from around the nation. Around a month later, the New York Times reports on a form of sarcoma found in 41 gay men. By the end of 1981, there was 270 reported cases of severe immune deficiency in gay men, with nearly half of them having died from the strange immune deficiency cases.
God, that happened so quickly.
Yeah, it's very quick. In the beginning of 1982, it was first suggested that the immune deficiency syndrome was sexual. At this point, they had no idea what was causing it. This is at the point where individuals started coining these series of cases as GRID, or gay-related immune deficiency. Another ignorant term was gay disease or the gay plague.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Great.
That had to be so terrifying at the time because, like, just on the heels of that was, like, the sexual freedom, like, revolution, free love thing.
Right.
So, like, they had just invented birth control and everybody was fucking everybody, and then all of a sudden there's this disease that no one knows where it came from, and everyone is calling it the sex disease for gays, you know? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that's
that
not
had
until
to be
1982,
so
right?
terrifying.
Right. And that's not until 1982. In 1981, it was just like they thought that just basically like casual contact could cause it.
Right, yeah. There are people today that think that you can catch HIV from using the same toilet as someone who has it. Like,
yeah, that's just
it's
ignorant pieces of
2018
shit.
and people think that.
Definitely sweating over here with my germophobia. Like,
I'm sorry,
anytime I touch a public toilet seat, I'm like, this is it for me.
But there's a point where it's like, yeah, like public toilet seats are disgusting and you should probably take precautions, but at the same time it's like,
you're not gonna get AIDS.
But not
You're
for
not
HIV.
gonna get AIDS.
Like, yeah.
Quote unquote get AIDS, which we've covered is not really a thing.
right, and it's
You're gonna catch AIDS. No.
There's a lot
No,
of
you're not.
stuff that I'm letting you know right now. This topic in particular is just very like,
It's infuriating.
It's an emotional
Really,
topic
it's
for me.
so infuriating to hear the way the public discourse was about this, like back in the day. Just so much misinformation. It is.
Absolutely.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
And you're gonna hear more about it. My whole thing behind it though is that I'm not gonna talk about conspiracy theories. I'm not gonna talk about the government forming the. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, don't pay it any mind.
No,
There was so much there.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just gonna stick to the facts. So basically, at this point, when they started hearing that it was a sexually transmitted disease, and there was more and more deaths, this is when it started to gain the attention of Reagan's administration.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a press briefing in October of that year, Deputy Press Secretary Larry Speaks says, quote, "It's known as gay plague." To at which point,
maybe Larry shouldn't speak.
right. That was the one bit we get. Hold on to it, folks. Cherish it. Brooke, did you enjoy it?
I did. It was a good moment.
Olivia, did you enjoy the bit?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
So this episode is called a 1-bit episode.
I cannot believe that we got a bit in.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be here all week. Tip your waitresses.
Yeah, only Brooke is the one that can make a bit in the midst of talking about AIDS. So
Actually,
First
that's
of all,
probably not a good
offended
thing.
that you did not involve me in this because I am very sorry. Keep going. My feelings don't matter in this.
So Larry Speak says it's known as gay plague. To at which point the entirety of the room laughs.
Ooh, no, I hate that.
I'm so glad I didn't wait to say my bit.
Yeah.
All right.
The reporter,
well, that's horrible.
right. The reporter responds with saying that it's a very serious disease.
Good. Thank you,
okay.
reporter.
So Larry Speaks says it's known as a gay plague, at which point everyone in the room laughs. The reporter responds with saying that it's a very serious disease, to which Larry responds with, I don't have it. Do you? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't have fucking polio either, but I don't want it to make a comeback. Jesus fucking Christ, Speaks.
Well, and during this like conference, a reporter who was asking him about it basically was like, "Oh no, I don't have it." And he's like, "Because if you have the gay disease, it was one of those kind of moments."
This is like kindergarten playground shit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh my god.
So Mr. Speak goes on to say that no one in the White House is aware of it and really just fucking blows it off as a joke. For the next couple of years, the Reagan administration will continue to openly make jokes about the disease and are continually ignorant and just absolutely fucking evil, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just horrific. In September of that year was the first time that the term AIDS was used, and this is because they started noticing the contraction of the disease not only in gay men, but in infants and drug users as well. I believe there was a case of 40 infants that contracted HIV and shortly died after. So that's when, the real attention started going towards the actual epidemic, right? Because, now babies and drug users were dying, but as long as it was the gay community, it was fine, right?
Right, yeah. Which is crazy, because, Republicans hate drug users also.
Right,
so,
yeah.
for them to be like, oh, whoa, the drug users, now we gotta do something, that just really drives home how little they gave a shit about the LGBT community at all.
Right. So, in response to the rapid spread of AIDS, organizations were set up such as SFAF, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and Gay Men's Health Crisis. On April 13th of 1982, it was estimated that tens of thousands of people could be affected by HIV. By the year of 1983, the CDC had finally announced how the disease spread, because up until that point, scientists believed that the transmission of the virus could be through casual contact due to the new and upcoming infant cases. The death toll moved up to over 1,000 in the next year, moving to triple that. In a way to prevent a further spread of the disease, bathhouses in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City were closed, and pamphlets were being created through the LGBT community on how to further prevent the spread of the virus. So this is, for me, the most horrific part of the entire experience, is that members of the LGBT community had to create these pamphlets and had to create this information because no one else was doing it for them.
Right.
So
well,
it was,
they didn't even really know what was going on, so they were just doing their best, but they were all in the dark.
right. So the entirety of the 80s was just them desperately trying to save their own lives. By the end of 1985, every region in the world had reported at least one case of AIDS, and over 20,000 cases reported total. The death toll continued to rise, and understandably, the FDA and the government needed to do something and take it more seriously instead of dragging their feet, which is a popular term that activists would use for the time, because they really thought the FDA and the government were really prolonging it, because it was, again, the gay disease. Mm-hmm. It was also it also wasn't until this year that AIDS had ever come from the president's mouth. So Reagan used the term AIDS for the first time in 1985.
What specific year are we in right now, just for timeline-wise? Are we still in 83?
No, we're on 85.
Perfect. Okay, just checking
so it
that
took
this
years.
is very slow-moving. Okay.
Yes.
Right. No, yeah. It's disgusting. So, absolutely enraged by the government's response to the epidemic and the FDA prolonging the release of any treatment, the activist group ACT UP is formed by the year of 1987 after over 40,000 deaths and a powerful speech from an activist named Larry Kramer. I cried during Larry Kramer's speech because it was just basically a bunch of people from the LGBT community gathered in a room arguing back and forth on how they should approach the issue and different forms of protest. Basically, people were, members of the group started telling stories about seeing all of their friends dying around them.
Yeah.
One survivor said this: "It's like a war. Friends are dropping dead and you're scared of your own life all at the same time." The survivors also feared their rights being taken away because at the time surveys showed that, and this is disgusting, 50% of Americans favored quarantine for AIDS victims. 48% said they should have some special form of identification. And 15% said victims should be tattooed.
Ooh, see, because the first one, like, I understand for any disease, if you don't know what's happening, like, isolation and study is important. But, like, can someone please enlighten me a little bit on how tattooing someone is gonna let you know that, like, you know, like, what the fuck?
Like,
what does that fucking do as far as
do?
treating it goes, other than you're a giant dick?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's just like I'm scared of this disease and you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and also during the documentary I was watching, there was also rumors about them being sent to internment camps.
neat. So this just keeps getting more and more Nazi.
Which is where the pink triangle came from the AIDS epidemic, because they truly feared it was becoming like Nazi Germany for gay men.
I don't understand how people, and this happens now, like with just all the stuff that's going on today, but like I don't understand how you can hear the words, hey, should we tattoo people and make them wear special identification? Where in your brain you don't go, absolutely not, immediately. Like why is that okay for people?
I also I don't understand.
I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm not
understand
even being
either.
very eloquent about this, but like it's just so crazy to me that we teach entire sections in as young as middle school about Nazi Germany and the horrors that people went through, and we still have people today that are like, yeah, I think gay people should be in internment camps, and it's like, what?
Well, you see, Brooke, that's different because
because it's
that's
America.
the gays.
That's right.
No, it's gays, so it's
It's
very
It's
gays
because
then,
they
too.
chose it.
Right.
Right.
Fuck. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like,
No, it just leaves you
it should be
speechless.
so obvious.
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Basically, Larry Kramer in his speech, everyone was yelling at each other at different forms of activism, what steps they should take, whether if they should push the FDA to just release drugs to save their lives, or if there should be more thorough regulation and people should they should just take the risk of more people dying for better drugs, right? So this is a huge point of debate for the group. And at one point, Larry Kramer just starts yelling, "We're in a fucking plague. It's a plague." He started talking about how we're treating each other like this and they're killing us off. About how, and then he asked how many people were HIV positive in the room, and obviously the majority of them raised their hand. He said, "Half of you will be gone within this year. You'll be dead. Do what we can in this moment. This is all we're fighting for." And it was one of the most powerful speeches I've seen in my entire life. If you guys really, really want to watch an incredible documentary that's going to make you feel absolutely terrified and
Is it
hurt.
We're in a Plague? Is that
Where do
the-
I sign?
Yeah, We're in a Plague is on
It's
HBO.
I think it's How to Survive a Plague.
Yeah, there it is.
Right. But I highly recommend it. Please watch it. So shortly after ACT UP was formed, the FDA released a drug called AZT. AZT costs $10,000 a year.
Mother.
Is that okay? So Olsen, is that 80s $10,000 or 2018 $10,000?
Oh, yeah. No, I converted it for you because I thought you would ask that question. In today's standards would be around $20,000 a year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I had no idea that
Yeah.
that's how much it cost.
Right.
Yeah, when you go a little bit more into the research, I have so much to say about the research of this, but I'm gonna let you do your thing before I go off a little
Right.
bit.
You
So keep
break
going.
out the good old handy dandy soapbox.
Yes.
Sure.
It's here. I've dusted it off. It's polished. It's got some walnut oil in it. So
Sure.
So nice.
Go ahead, Brie.
Okay. So making AZT one of the most, if not the most expensive FDA-approved drugs in all of history.
Yeah. 100%.
God.
Naturally, ACT UP was enraged.
Oh, sure.
No! For really?
Right.
Wow.
And responded with a series of marches and protests. And the way that ACT UP as a group responded with protests and their activism, I believe, single-handedly saved millions of people's lives. And I just want to, I'm sure no one from ACT UP is listening or even...
Hey, you don't know.
Yeah, I don't, but what an important and incredible group, and what amazing work that they did. And I 100% support them and their organization. Basically, their forms of protest were just very effective, and the way that they did it was. I'm sorry?
Did they make the quilt? There was, I don't know the details on this, but there was a quilt that a group made, and every square was like a symbol for a life lost to the AIDS crisis, and then they spread it out on the White House lawn.
Yep, that was them.
That was them? Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was, it's pretty gruesome to see how large that quilt was.
It was a lot. It was an effective metaphor, though. Go on.
Right. Yeah. So ACT UP was enraged and responded with a series of marches and protests. The group quickly started growing, and more horror stories started being released. One healthcare professional, Dr. Iris Long, described how they were refusing patients at hospital doors and would put bodies in trash bags. So, also certain mortuaries wouldn't take people who were infected with HIV.
Right, yeah.
So they just didn't know what to do with the bodies. So through absolute anger, this activist group performed incredible acts of protest. People would actively sign sheets to be arrested, and some would go as far as getting medical training to truly understand what was happening with the FDA and the drug regulation. They would get educated in different fields of medicine, biology, and write research papers to save their own lives because the system simply wasn't working fast enough for them. They were dying and they had no time.
Yeah. Nobody cared. They didn't care to put in the money to research.
Well, and even if they did, it was like, oh, this is going to take 7 to 10 years. And it's like, I have 6 months.
Yeah.
Not acceptable,
Yeah. God, the death toll from 7 to 10 years would have been insane. So.
Right.
And was.
Yeah, it was a lot. Meanwhile, the press continued to spread falsehoods about the virus, such as one of the biggest myths I've ever heard: AIDS cannot kill women.
What?
What the fuck?
So they would have those types of myths in like Vogue magazine. Like it was a popular thing back in the day to try to make it a different disease for different people and certain groups of people.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, you know how there's like the WNBA. There's also like WHIV. It's a different thing.
Right.
Totally different. Women are fine. And we need feminism because... Sorry.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
That was pretty bad, Olivia.
Just
and
fucking
so,
bullshit.
This is a quote that was delivered on May 7th, 1988, which is later in the timeline. But it's important by an activist named Vito Russo, who was like a big head figure of the movement. As part of a protest in Albany, New York, which he says this, and I think this pertains very well to what people with HIV were experiencing at the time, or just gay men who even weren't HIV positive were experiencing. But living with AIDS is like living through a war, which is happening only for those people who happen to be in the trenches. Every time a shell explodes, you look around you, you discover you have lost more of your friends, but nobody else notices it. It isn't happening to them. Which is just heartbreaking because no one is caring for these people except for the actual people who are fighting the virus, right?
Crazy worldwide gaslighting situation.
Absolutely.
Where like an entire community is being destroyed and the world at large is like, what? It's not happening to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what other disease in history have we seen that happen? I don't think it's ever happened before.
Right. I mean, it's horrific.
Ebola was kind of close to it because it was happening in Africa and people didn't give a shit until it came to their country.
Oh yeah, it was like destroying people's lives.
And also, I also would like to add, HIV was prevalent in Africa for decades, and nobody gave a shit until it came to San Francisco. So
right.
I mean, like everybody got fucked until straight white people got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically, yeah, it's horrific. And there was at one point in the documentary when people were talking about going to so many funerals a week that they had to like quit their jobs and just try to mourn and dedicate everything to like this activist group. Also, people were being fired for being HIV positive. There was just so much. that they had to face that was just discriminatory, right?
Yeah. Isn't it still a thing where, like, if you identify as anything but straight, you can't give blood even today?
Yeah. Again, I'll talk more. I want to save it at the end because I don't want to like impede the storyline. But there's like a lot of the ability to test blood back in the day was really bad.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and people
essentially
still got HIV through blood transfusions.
Yeah,
Right.
because, like I said, you can't even detect it until, like, 4 weeks. And additionally, I don't think they even had the tests available to them to detect anything in the blood until the late 80s.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So at the time, I understand where they were coming from. They do the same thing. If you have ever received insulin before, I believe, 1980, you're never allowed to give blood because you could be infected with prions, which don't even exhibit symptoms for 10 years.
Right.
But it's a policy
prions
that...
are wild.
Yeah, prions are scary. But it's a policy that at this point should 100% be eliminated.
Yeah, today
because,
it seems a little...
Yeah, our ability to test blood at this point is very, very good. So,
Right.
But at the time, I kind of understand where they were coming from.
Yeah, because, like, even at the time, things were slipping through the cracks, kids were dying, and it was, like, terrifying. I get it, but it's been, like, 40 years?
Yeah, like I understand I think to this day, if you were an intravenous drug user, you can't donate blood still, which, again, I understand. I think it is a money thing. It takes a lot of money to test blood. Those blood tests are very expensive. So
they probably have to test it anyway. All you have to do is lie.
Yeah, they do have to test it. It's just, I think it cuts down on the cost, and I think it turns people away before they have to test it. It's moderately less expensive now, but it could cost several $1,000s to test a pint of blood back in the day, because the technology just wasn't available to do so yet. It's very tough. A lot of people died from blood transfusions for many, many years, for many, many different diseases, hepatitis and alike
scary.
and stuff. All of it's a bummer. So,
Whew.
yeah.
Anyway,
Back
we
to death.
digress.
Right. So the biggest issue for activist groups at the time was the rate of the production of drugs for the treatment of HIV.
Yes.
The FDA was claiming that in order to truly test the drugs for safety, it would take around 7 to 10 years, but in places like Europe and Japan, it could take them 9 months.
Interesting.
Right. So they were seeing different cases of these different types of drugs, especially drugs to treat HIV that weren't even being tested in America, were just completely being ignored. I believe that there was 99 different drug treatments that they could have tried, but they just weren't trying them.
Yeah. Because it was only the one company that was researching AZT that they had patented and they're like working on.
Well, and
nobody
also
else wanted to pick it
AZT,
up.
not only was it ridiculously expensive, but it had a series of side effects that prohibited a lot of people from actually taking AZT because the side effects were just too much for them.
Yeah.
So
it's a chemotherapy medication. If you take it in low enough dose, you can treat HIV. So that's why it was really fucking intense.
right. So like I said, it would take a significantly less amount of time to test it in other countries. So the LGBT community was just very confused on why nothing was being addressed. It prompted small organizations to pop up importing drugs illegally to save the lives of people of LGBT communities. And HIV-positive people wanted their drugs to be safe, but they really just could not wait that long. And the other alternative was AZT, which again, the side effects, the ridiculous expenses, it just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So basically, there was one interview with an ACT UP activist who was talking with two conservatives on a talk show about just the AIDS epidemic and what was happening in their communities with FDA regulation, because this is when they started protesting the FDA. That he started talking about just like listing all these facts and listing all these different alternatives and these plans that these groups would write for the FDA and all these like medical treatments. They would come up with research for the FDA, and the response by the two conservatives were, well, you can stop having sex.
Wow. Oh my
Okay.
god.
Well,
It's so crazy because to them that's a viable answer. They're just like, yeah.
Just don't have sex anymore at all.
Stop engaging in this bodily function that you have.
Well,
Just
and not
don't
even that.
do
It's
it
like
anymore.
There. So basically, the response to that was, well, I don't think that we should necessarily stop having sex. The advice I would give to the gay community is to wear condoms and
Yeah,
protect
have
yourself.
safe sex. Right.
Did they know at the time that condoms would help?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
Right. So they were saying basically, please, just wear condoms, and they advocated so much for the use of condoms, and the conservative at this point in the interview basically said that, well, I think it would just be better if you just didn't make that choice, and then the activist said, well, this is the issue that I have with that, is that people in the gay community are still going to have sex, right?
Yeah, you're not going to just tell them not to, and then it's going to work. Like, what?
Right. And I would rather have people actively having sex safely and many lives being saved than people not having sex, so on and so forth or whatever, and we're not promoting these safe uses of contraception and people dying. And then he looked at the man and he said, wouldn't you advocate for that over the death toll or gay sex? And the man said, well, thank you for coming on to the show. We really appreciate it. And just kind of affirmed the fact that he would rather
I'd rather
see
you die than have gay sex.
Right.
Nice.
Cool dude. Dude.
What was this guy's name? Did you get it?
I didn't, unfortunately. Piece of shit, probably.
Can someone please rewatch that documentary? Please get that for us, please. Tweet us that name.
Yeah, tweet us that name, and that
Actually,
way
I
we
might
can just
look
like
it up,
fucking
'cause
bash
I
that
feel
guy
like
and give
these
a big
people
ol'.
need to have their names out there. And they are. Like, we're not exposing the darkness of the conservative agenda, but like, my God.
It's all of it's on a public forum. They were fully okay with saying this shit. And I mean, like, you got to understand that, right, this is during the AIDS epidemic. So, you know, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
But I think that the amount of lack of empathy is just absolutely horrific and disgusting, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So basically, ACT UP responded to the FDA, just moving at an incredibly slow pace, with standing outside office buildings, begging the FDA to push drugs out at the rate that Europe and Japan were. At this point, there was a death every 4 minutes from AIDS. The FDA finally approves drugs for those in critical need without full trials. Basically, at this point, people who were HIV positive would rather take drugs without full trials because they were at such stakes that it was like, well, it's either this or I'm going to have a guaranteed death. So I'd rather try something.
Yeah.
And then they were also getting drugs from the black market drug trade. Right. And this is what was barely keeping them alive. ACT UP started to protest the Catholic Church for their encouragement to stop using condoms.
What the fuck?
Well, yeah. Because the Catholic Church was under the belief that condoms, right, and it still are under the belief that any form of contraceptive is not great, right?
I had no idea.
What the fuck?
I didn't know that.
Have you guys never heard of that before?
I mean, I knew that they were saying don't use condoms like to people who were having sex just because they're dicks like that. But seriously?
Yeah, I had no idea that was a thing.
Right. So, ACT UP protested the Catholic Church for this encouragement to stop using condoms. Also, church officials would say that they would rather see individuals get AIDS and die than see the wide use of condoms in sodomy.
What?
Yeah.
How do you want me to respond to that?
I don't know how I responded to it. I responded to it by crying. I'm sorry?
They said that the use of condoms could sometimes be considered a first step toward moral behavior, but that the use of condoms was still considered immoral, and that the Pope had not intended to... Wait, what? This is so weird. So apparently the church said that condoms can be good for straight people, but for gay people, no.
What? No, get out of my ass. You're joking my ass. Get out of it.
They're basically
No.
trying to say that chastity should be used before condoms in trying to keep HIV from spreading.
Which was a lot of people had that opinion at the time, though.
Well, sure, but, like, I don't know. Like, that seems... To
No,
go
it's
from
disgusting.
that to don't use condoms if you're gonna have sex because I'd rather you be dead, that's such a far leap.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Right. So basically, their plan, which is this is one of another very emotional protest that they had, was to planting activists in the St. Patrick's Cathedral, where they had a huge basic protest outside of the cathedral, shouting that you're killing us, and then they planted activists to lay on the floor, link arms and refuse to move and shout like, you're killing us, you're murdering us, why are you murdering us? At which point, what do you think the members of the Catholic Church did?
Honestly, can I just say like my fucked up answer?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say like laughed probably sounds about appropriate for.
Yeah, at this point I wouldn't even be surprised because like what? All of this is so insane. Go ahead.
So, didn't directly laugh.
Oh,
Okay.
not directly.
Because they were too uncomfortable because their services were being infiltrated by HIV positive people. So they just started
Those
to put
poor services in their church.
right.
Wow.
So they
God.
started to put pamphlets over them, laying on the ground with God's word on it.
Wow.
Which I don't have any words. I don't have any comments. I just have that fact for you. So
Jesus Christ.
right.
And they think
they
they're
also
doing the right thing. It's wild.
well, and that's the thing, that they think they're saving their lives, and they would tell them that their eternal life is more important than their earthly one, right?
Yeah,
That is so
I
fucking
guess.
disgusting.
But like, I don't know, man. It just seems like a no-brainer to me.
No, it's yeah.
Right?
We're all on
Like,
the same page here that it's
sure.
absolutely disgusting and horrific, but basically another piece of shit that ACT UP protested was Senator Jesse Helms, who would say things on the Senate floor such as, and this is a direct quote, "If they were to keep their mouths shut and go about their business with whatever their sexual orientation is, nobody would say a word and we wouldn't know anything about them. But no, they march in the streets and they defy you if you say anything about it." Right, so just silence, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is really good radio, but like, geez.
yeah. But they protested him by putting a large tarp over his house that looked like a condom and said, "A condom to stop unsafe politics. Helms is deadlier than a virus."
Wait, hold on. Stop. How did they do that?
It was perfectly legal.
Impressed. That's
It was a form of protest that they said if that they caused any damage to the house, any form of financial damage, they would love to cover it. But it was for whatever reason, I don't know the actual legislation, but it was perfectly legal for them to do.
Is that not trespassing? I feel like it would be trespassing.
I don't know.
Wow. I mean, I love it.
Hey,
It was a
big
good bit.
energy right there. That's
You have big
incredible.
dick energy, like huge dick energy.
love
Oh,
it.
man.
Huge fans. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, really good.
So right, this activist group was making absolute moves forward and didn't give a shit. They
Good.
wanted their voice to be heard, which is great. But the reason why this is because just thousands kept on dying at an even more accelerated rate, right? And people with AIDS were not getting the proper resources, such as housing or any form of healthcare whatsoever. Just literally just being kicked out of hospitals, right?
Right.
And this is the most emotional scene for me in the documentary that I watched. there was a march on the White House where thousands participate. I believe it was around 6,000 people marched to the White House doing this. Carrying the ashes and bone segments of loved ones that had passed away from AIDS, literally their bodies, saying, the dead knock at your door, and we want a cure. Basically stopping any romanticism of the AIDS virus, which there really wasn't any, but at the time it was just people just ignorantly ignoring it or trying to make it into a thing that was just, the gay disease, and just trying to make lighter of it. They really wanted to bring to the point that millions and millions of people were dying.
Well, yeah, that'll do it.
So, it is the most emotional scene I've probably ever seen in a documentary. It was them linking arms, pouring the ashes of their loved ones over the White House's gates onto the lawn, saying goodbye to them, to try to make a statement. So, George Bush Sr. responded to this in a presidential debate 24 hours later by saying, I am very much concerned about AIDS, and I believe we have some of the best researchers in the world out there in NIH working this problem. And I think that this is one of those diseases where behavior matters. And I once called on somebody saying, change that behavior. If the behavior is prone to cause AIDS, change it.
Some Class A victim blaming right there.
Right. It was a continuous cycle of ignoring thousands and thousands of people who were dying in the nation that they wanted to serve and protect, so on and so say, which is their fucking job. But they didn't care because, again, it was the so-called gay disease. By 1996, through the research plans formulated by ACT UP, the FDA finally approved a drug regimen that could stop HIV from progressing to AIDS.
What year was that again?
1996.
That's the year I was born.
Right.
That's over a decade. That's almost 15 years.
Right. Thousands of people died. It's
This is so ridiculously recent. It is disturbing.
Right. It's the fact that it is so ridiculously recent, right? It's something that happened very, very close to our time. Our parents were raised in this. Basically, so 7 companies in present day make protease inhibitors, which is the treatment of HIV from expanding into AIDS.
Right, yeah.
The number of people who die because they can't afford these type of drugs are 5,500 every day, which equates to around 2 million every year.
Is that now or was that then?
Now.
Huh. How much is PrEP and PEP today? Do you know?
How much is what?
The protease inhibitors. Yeah.
I'm not sure on the exact figure.
I'll look it up. Don't worry about it.
But it's not a resource that people can easily access, especially like what Olivia was saying before. People in America who even like white, straight, cis people in America who have contracted HIV, who have a good financial background, have a hard enough time getting these types of drugs, let alone people in different countries around the world who just do not have these resources.
Yeah, also to add, usually if you're correctly treating HIV at this point, you're not taking a single drug, you're taking a combination cocktail of multiple classes. Right. So you're not only having to pay for one, which is expensive enough, you have to do a combination of like 2 or 3
have to do it every day
for it to be effective.
Right, it's a constant regimen.
Which is pretty expensive.
So
sorry, go on.
1 second. I found the so PEP. You have to take it as soon as you know you have it. Which is it's the post-exposure one. It's not like pre-exposure. So you have to take the combination of 3 different ARVs for 4 weeks after you know you've been exposed, and it costs between $600 and $1,000 per dose. You have to take it several times a day for 30 days. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, that sounds about correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about correct.
That is so much money.
So
And I would imagine it's not covered by insurance.
for the cost alone, probably not.
Yeah, and if you have HIV, it would be immediately considered a pre-existing condition. So,
Yeah.
It's
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's still real. It's affecting millions of people all over the world who
Right.
can't get the resources that they need. And I think that a lot of people think that because it's not the 80s anymore, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Well, it's definitely
think-
not as bad, but it's not, like, there's this prevailing idea that if you get HIV today, it's, like, not immediately a death sentence. And for a lot of people, that's super true. Like, if you're Magic Johnson, you can live a normal lifespan because you're
Yeah.
Magic
Right.
fucking Johnson. But, like,
Right.
You get paid
HIV
for all
would,
of the medication.
especially new diagnoses, are mostly taking place in poorer communities who don't have access to health care. And, like, they're not going to be able to afford PrEP and PEP. And, like, those people are still dying.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely. I think with countless activist groups, I think that honestly ACT UP was one of the reasons that we were able to come up with the scientific research that we were able to come up with.
yeah.
The reason that we made such progression and such huge leaping steps forward in the science community, because these people were dying and they had no other choice to, because no one else was helping them, and that they had to save their own lives and help themselves. To at which time they saw all of their friends dying around them. One of the most emotional points of the interviews that I was watching was the survivors talking about how in the 80s they fully thought they were going to die,
Yeah, of course.
and that they thought they were just going to die like everybody else, so that they were doing everything that they could to, help future generations. But when they survived, they just didn't know what to do, because one, all of their friends were gone, but two, that it was just a sense of, well, what now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are people that actively screamed in the face of representatives of the FDA, saying that you're personally killing me. You're the one being held responsible for this, and it's very true. I think that the fact that it had to get to the point where they had to actively lock arms and sit outside office doors to just get any form of attention or any part of regulation for basic health care and basic human rights is the absolute most disgusting thing about this. And I think that that's what keeps me up at night, is just the fact that so many people fought so hard, and so many people died, and it's just horrific that a large part of our government ignored it, and that the president at the time would make jokes. It's just horrific, and there's nothing else to say. There's no positive note. There's no positive end. I do want to say, like, that activist groups like ACT UP have done incredible work, in that we just need to talk about it, and we need to talk about prevention, and we need to continue to have safe sex, and we need to continue to realize that this isn't a gay disease. And even if it was a gay disease, or if it was just affecting this one group of people, as human beings, we need to understand and try to do everything to help. But it's affecting all of us every day. So.
And I have to apologize on behalf of the listener. Like, this isn't an entertaining show, because, like, obviously all three of us are so angry. Like, it's infuriating to listen to the stats, and how I heard a stat not too long ago that said that if HIV had been dealt with the way that other, like, epidemics were dealt with in the US at the time, that the death toll could have been brought down to, like, the low thousands.
Right.
So if I may retrieve my soapbox.
Oh, really
Pulling
quick,
out,
before you do, just keep that in your hands really quick. I do need to correct two things that I said.
Yeah.
So PEP costs $600 to $1,000 for a full course of treatment, plus whatever your hospital costs. So that's all of it. Sure. And then it is actually
that current
covered.
Day?
Wait, what?
Is it current? That's current day prices. Like...
That's today. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
And then you can get access to it if you apply for Medicaid. So it is covered by Medicaid. Also, I'm sort of wrong about what I said about the Catholic Church, that contraception is okay for straight people but not gay people. At the time, that was kind of what was being said, but the general consensus about contraception in the Catholic Church is that it's like a pathway to sin, because contraception means that couples don't have to be faithful anymore because there's no risk of getting pregnant, etc., etc. So it's not just gay people that they're like, don't use contraception. It's everybody.
Okay.
I don't want to I don't want to spread misinformation about. I know. I don't want to spread misinformation and make it seem like they're more homophobic than they are. Like, we don't need to go more into that.
There's a certain amount of homophobic, not more than that.
Yeah, the tasteful amount of homophobia. Am I right, guys?
So if I may, because I thought about doing HIV research, not from that perspective, but from a research perspective, because in my opinion, the characteristics of the virus are actually scarier than the effects in the US, because the effects are very human. The way that the virus works is horrifying to me. So, essentially building off of Brie, completely correct, it infects the T cells, everything like that, which it's essentially weaponizing your immune system to kill you, which is so terrifying.
Crazy. It also makes it an ineffective virus.
Actually, so here's the thing, and this is just okay. So I did a whole online virology course because that's my field that I'm interested in going into. I'm interested in going into pharmaceuticals and research and everything like that. And influenza is very scary, but the one way that influenza is manageable is, yes, if something goes wrong, we're all gonna die. But the way in which it works, we were able to develop a vaccine for it because we have the ability to create the vaccine, right? Once it gets infected, you can identify the viral genome, create the vaccine, boom, done. The way that HIV works, HIV is a retrovirus. So essentially what that means is, when I said influenza, it infects the cells. It reproduces copies from RNA to more RNA, packages it, and sends it out. HIV infects the cells with RNA. It's also an RNA-based virus, so a lot of what I said before to RNA-based viruses applies. But it does something incredibly unique. And this, I believe they isolated the first retrovirus in 1979. What HIV does, it infects the cells, and that RNA is copied into DNA and then inserted into your viral genome, into your genome.
Yeah.
So instead of having free-floating DNA, it embeds itself into your body's genome permanently.
Yeah.
So every time that your body reproduces DNA, it's masked and produces it constantly.
Yeah, it manipulates the DNA and the RNA in your body.
Right, and so the reason why that's so horrifying is it's borderline impossible to ever create a vaccine against something like this. With the generation of, I think, and I looked it up, it's about 10 to the 10th power of virions, which are infectious viral particles a day. This mutation rate is multitudes higher than influenza, to the point of... In a single day, an HIV patient can be infected with multiple strains and variants of HIV in a single day. Mm-hmm. That's how fast it mutates. And because it's embedded into your genome, it would be impossible to make a vaccine. So approaching it at the level in which they would have approached any other outbreak, most other outbreaks, we can treat it with, vaccines or antibiotics. How do you kill a virus that is embedded within your genome in every cell of your body, right? That's a big... They had never fucking dealt with that before, ever. right? 1979 is the first time they discover it without any really understanding of how the fuck to do anything about that. And I think it wasn't even until 1981 they isolated HIV. And then upon that, it's going to take decades worth of research to figure out how it enters the cell. And that's important because there's a couple of different drugs that you can take that essentially inhibits the proteins on the outside of the cell that the virus can enter into, right? So that's going to take a couple decades. Most of the most popular ones, you're taking a drug that inhibits the reproduction cycle, but it doesn't prevent you from getting infected. When I looked it up, there's like 12 different classes of like HIV drugs that you can take, which is why you're taking them in combination. And as far as research goes, as somebody, I've done some research like academically in, I guess it'd be classified as animal research. I had to do animal research when I was at a research internship. And the amount of time it takes to develop a drug from start to finish is really truly in the absolute best case scenario, like 7 years, because of the amount of funding that people receive.
Sure.
So I was there for 1 year, and we weren't even able to complete a project that would be able to determine the concentration of a single drug in your body, because it takes so much time and there's no money available, right? So thinking about how little money they probably funded into the HIV research, you know, scientists are like, we need to fucking do research, but how do you expect us to do these tests when one test costs $100,000 and you're not giving us any money? And then the government is like, big shrug, figure it out.
Well, and it's never the researchers' like fault.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what I wonder is how much more progress could have been made if the disease had been taken seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and that's something that the survivors said, because of the fact that there was actually a significant amount of government funding because of the fact that it was just so vast.
Yeah.
But the survivors were talking about how if the government paid attention and the FDA actively tried to come up with research plans that they were coming up with after going through studying the biology of it, having nurses come in, having doctors come in, right? That they could have saved millions of lives.
That is non-arguable point. Like, so many people would have been saved if they had just fucking jumped on it. Yeah. But I think the stats are, as it is currently, about 12% of all drugs submitted to the FDA for approval actually make it through to the human clinical trials. Just because you have to cut them out for so many reasons. And what's really unfortunate and to this day makes me really sad is, personally, as somebody who's done research, I would never take a medication that hasn't been in research and development for at least 5 years. With the amount of time that it's required to develop a drug.
I feel like your opinion would change if you had 3 months to live.
Absolutely.
Well, see, the thing is, that's the other factor there. So, imagine you have HIV, and they're like, we are currently testing a medication, and we don't know if it works or not. And if you volunteer to be in this, you might or might not get the actual drug. You might get the placebo.
Right,
and,
which is just...
It's hard, right? You know, it's like, we want to approve it. We need to do it in a way to make sure it 100% works, because there are multiple drugs on the market that didn't work, that were expensive, and being sold. And it's also hard to look a human being in the face and say, this isn't approved yet, and if you want to live, you have a 50-50 shot of getting the actual medication and the placebo. Well, do you want to do that? Right?
Yeah, and the thing about it too was also the real medication that they were getting was not even guaranteed to work.
Right, because they didn't know. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I think
it's so hard.
Right. I think it's absolutely very hard, especially for doctors and nurses. There was the one nurse I mentioned, Dr. Iris Long, at the time was a nurse. She was just this straight cis woman who was in a hospital and was just and working in hospitals during the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, I believe in San Francisco. And she just noticed how just awful and corrupt the system was, and just how millions, just like thousands and thousands of people were dying and were being turned away at the doors. And so she was the one who started coming to ACT Up meetings, and saying, this is what the FDA is doing. And, like, these are the things that you need to be aware of coming from someone with experience. So, like, she was a huge help to the group, which, like, thank God for that woman. She's incredible. But I think the one silver lining that you can take, I mean, there's none, right? But the effort of activist groups and the effort of people who actually did care was incredible and courageous, and absolutely something that is just so just unapologetically like, just I don't have any other word but to say than fierce. Like it, like but you know what? Like, because it's just so.
I mean, they were literally like looking at people in the eyes who literally just. Like, people thought, nah, you deserve to die, right? Like, I would rather you not have sex and like, or die. Like, those are your two options. And they were directly coming into contact with those people.
Pretty much every day, yeah.
They were the only ones responsible for, at the very least, spreading information, like, dude, use condoms. Like, that's all we got right now because nobody is researching this. And, like, there are not enough drugs available to us to help us. They were shipping in drugs that, you know, were approved in other countries. Like, they did a lot. Like, the amount that they contributed and the amount of lives that they definitely saved is not negligible.
The death toll could have been so much higher.
It for sure. And, like, I have no idea how available, like, the condoms were at the time, because at the very, very least, like, that is such an easy, cheap fix to just make those publicly available. And it was almost like, no. Like, I don't know. It's just so infuriating to me. Just at the very least, condoms are cheap.
Like, it's just latex. Like,
oh my God, right? Like, and it just, the whole situation makes me sad because we're not equipped to handle a disease like this in such short of time unless everybody's involved.
Right. Well, and God, the thing about not making condoms readily available, widespread, is kind of part of why people just assume that the Reagan administration actively wanted gay people to die. And I see kind of where they're coming from. Like, that's what it looks like.
Well, I think that we should just end this one. I want it to be over.
This one was a bummer and a half.
I mean, it's all sad. The research is sad. The human lives lost were sad. Sad.
Very sad. Very horrific. Very awful. Brooke, I'm excited to see what you do for your epidemic.
Oh my God, this one was also so hard. I don't know what we were thinking when we were like, hey, let's talk about horrifying things, but be funny about it. What the fuck were we thinking, guys?
We're a crazy and zany podcast.
Oh boy.
I would, before we go out, I want to make a shout out to my coworkers who actively listen to this podcast while we're working to support me.
Yeah.
And anyone who has downloaded the podcast, who are supporting friends and family at home, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, it's very nice.
Yeah, we've done some iTunes reviews. Very much thanks. Thank you so much. Very appreciate. TY.
Yeah, it's so nice to read those. Makes my heart warm.
Shout out to Chris and Callie. Thank you. And then we can do our little spiel about iTunes reviews and fun Instagram stuff. Olivia, if you want to.
Yes. Please give us iTunes reviews.
Please.
Really helps promote us. Like, it's I think iTunes is one of the easiest platforms to, like, get known on, as long as you're getting those reviews and getting those, like, supports. Really appreciative of it. We have a whole whopping 10 reviews.
Woof.
One of them is from my dad, so we're going. We're getting places.
Thanks, Dad.
You can find all of our information. We have a website now, so you can find all of it there. It's ttkmeup.com. And then our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is all
Oh my God.
ttkmeup.
Also, huge fucking thanks. Speaking of crying and getting emotional, I actively cried when I saw the picture that was drawn of us.
Yes!
The illustration is so good. I
It's so
posted
good.
it on my social media. I don't know if you guys have, but a huge shout out to Cassandra Belomo, who is the artist that made the illustration on our site. It's
so
beautiful
cute.
and better than I could
Fucking
have
rad.
ever asked for. It's amazing.
I know, it's way better than anything I could have ever thought of.
Yeah, you should have
It's
seen
incredible.
when we first were throwing around the idea of getting an illustration put on the site. Olivia drew a stick figure picture of like what it kind of looks like in the actual illustration, and I gave that to Cassandra, and she was like, "Yeah, totally, I got it," and then fucking pulled that out of her ass. It was
I really
amazing.
I should show the before and after for that, because
Yeah.
only an artist
You
is
should.
able
It's
to look at
amazing.
that and go, "Oh, I know exactly what she's talking about. Yeah, I'll get that done. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
And she fucking
and then she
did it.
nailed it. She blew it out of the water. It was
Like
so good.
to the point of where my microphone was set up, which I know we didn't communicate to her, but she
Yeah.
knew.
No, yeah,
Oh,
it's
she
funny.
listened to the episodes, so she knew where everybody was at.
She knew that, like, certain things were there. I know she listened to some of the episodes, but, like, she put a window in the back of mine, and, like, there's a window next to my desk, and it's just so crazy.
Is she stalking us? Who knows?
Honestly, don't care. I'm happy.
That'd be a great.
Cool
That'd
with
be
it.
a great episode.
Oh, yeah.
Our artist is stalking us.
Honestly, that shows dedication.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Very much impressed. I think that's how you get the art right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta
Right.
go all out. Go big or go home, kids.
So that's our funnies.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Next week we got Brooke. Yeah, it's gonna be a final sad one. Every
Yeah,
time
it's-
I literally, but I swear to God to you, I was trying not to get emotional when I started talking about the research for HIV. I almost started crying.
Really?
Yeah,
Olivia.
because it's like the amount of energy and work that goes into these experiments, and like, I can't. I'm gonna get emotional if I start talking.
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, I was tearing up
Yeah, the whole
with
thing.
yeah, it's
I almost maybe it's also I was also tearing up because of the just like the innate scariness of a retrovirus is horrifying to me.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine like finding out that it's just completely unlike any other virus you've ever seen in your life as a researcher? That would be the gut punch moment.
I mean, but also that's like the same thing that happened in the influenza one is they treated it like they were going to treat like every other bacterial thing. They gave people anti-serums and they were like, this doesn't work? Question mark.
What is happening?
So, like, that's why this scares me, because, like, if we ever encounter another disease again that's, like, brand fucking new, every time there's, like, a new disease that's unlike anything we've seen before, we just get fucked.
Yeah.
And it just, this entire situation was just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And it's still going on, which is kind of a bummer. So...
And you all saw probably on our Twitter that we had a vote about our next mini-sode, and the votes are in spades. We are doing a mini-sode on urban myths and legends, which Olivia is so excited about.
I swear to God to you, I lost sleep reading creepypastas.
Did
Like,
you really?
No, I did. I read one and I went, dude, this is the fucking one. Like, I know what I'm reading and I know what I'm talking about. And I was like, I thought to myself, woo, thank God I'm in an apartment with a roommate that I'm sharing a room with. And like 20 minutes later, she texted me and she's like, hey, just letting you know, like, I'm just out with my friends tonight. I think I'm going to sleep over at her place. So, and I just went,
Come home.
fuck.
You need to
swear God
protect
you,
me.
I slept with the lights on.
Did you really?
Hey, if it makes
I
you
did. I hate spooky things.
Olivia?
if it makes you feel any better, Ted Bundy managed to kill a whole fraternity while other people in the house were sleeping.
Hey, Brie?
Yeah?
Could you maybe shut
Not?
up? Just a fucking thought.
Yeah. Thanks, Brie.
It's like that meme where it's like, you know what? Fuck this.
Actually, I had a better idea. Fuck this. Also, yeah, we might do another poll on Twitter about what you want our next heavy hitter to be, because we've got a few options up in the air.
start messaging us. Start
Yeah.
talking to us.
Yeah,
we want
we're-
an open dialogue.
I'm
I feel
never
like it's
not
healthy
on
in our
Twitter.
relationship between you guys. You know, I feel like you guys, you know, your listeners, you've been coming home from work, you've been putting your coat up, and I'm like, hey, how's your day? And you kind of just, you know, ignore me and walk to the fridge to get your brandy, and I don't know, I just don't feel like you share enough affection as you did when we first started, like, hanging out.
Brie,
Why are things
you...
different, Brooke? Why are things different?
Why are they?
And
We
on
got
that
married,
note,
we were just so in love, and I don't know what I did wrong. Am I not pretty enough for you?
Wow.
on that note,
Yeah, I think that's a good place to
on that note,
sneak out of here.
thank you
Thanks,
for
guys, for
joining
listening.
us.
We love you guys.
It's been real,
Call your friends.
And-
Tell them you love them.
and deuces.
Absolutely. Bye.
See ya.